this is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do? And today's guest is Ted Moreno. And what do you do?
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and high performance coach.
Okay, now let's talk about hypnotherapists
Okay.
because lots of people have preconceived ideas about them, either good or bad. So do you want to talk about it?
Absolutely. Now I would suggest most people have preconceived
But
notions.
it's 2019.
Yeah, people still contend the earth is flat. But what hypnosis is, it's a state that we're all in every single day of our lives. So it's just another word for trance, okay? And trance could be a deep trance, could be a light trance. You know, if you've ever had the experience of driving down the freeway and missing your off-ramp because you were spacing out, that's a type of trance state.
You've done it many times.
It happens very easily. You know, the hum of the car, focusing on a spot. Watching television certainly is an easy way to go into trance. You know, we think about it. We're looking at an acting out scenario, but we believe that it's true.
Yeah.
We forget that they're actors, and we have an emotional response. We may cry, we may get angry, we may feel scared, and so the word we use is suggestible. We're suggestible to what we see, and that creates feelings and emotions within us. So that would be another example of kind of like a trance state. And then we're in a trance state right after we wake up, right before we go to bed at night. So it's a natural state. But when you're in hypnosis, in a hypnotherapy situation, you are awake. And I think that's the biggest fear that people have, is they're going to go into a hypnotherapy session, get knocked out, not remember anything that happened, and then wake up like, with something put in their mind. But that's not the case at all. People remain awake, aware, fully in control, thinking thoughts, yet very, very relaxed.
Sometimes, can you fall asleep and still in hypnosis and still get the information that you're talking about?
No.
So if I fell asleep, you have me under hypnosis, and
Yes.
I'm conscious, and then all of a sudden I zonk out. I stop being conscious at that time.
That's correct. So you're no longer conscious, you're no longer in hypnosis, you are unconscious and asleep. And at that point, when you're sleeping, the mind has a bunch of other things to do, and it's not really listening to anything other than some dangerous indication that you should get up. But as far as listening to recordings when you're asleep, they've been proven to not be effective because your mind's just not suggestible when you're asleep.
Okay. I've always wanted to know the answer to that.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about you and your background and what made you get into this.
Well, to make a long story short, I was thinking about, earlier today, I was thinking about the questions you might ask me, and it occurred to me that it really was a combination of desperation and fear. So I was afraid that I would end up in a job or a career that I didn't like or didn't enjoy. And that was very, very scary to me, because that was kind of the model that I grew up with. You know, I grew up with a father that didn't appear to enjoy what he was doing. If he did, he certainly didn't show it, and he was very stressed. And he had 8 kids, and that was probably one of the reasons for his stress. But for me, I really wanted to not get involved in something that was going to make me miserable. So I spent a lot of time trying this, trying that, and always really not committing, because I never felt that it was anything that I wanted to do for any length of time. And then I was also desperate because, I was 42, kind of beginning to ask myself, hey, what's going on here? You going to do something, or
Is this all there is?
is this all there is? I was dating my then-to-be wife at the time, so I knew I was going to have to kind of make a little bit more money. And so, make a long story short, my job that I was working at, which was just a very miserable job,
What was it?
I was an administrative assistant for a federally funded grant program out of Cal State Los Angeles. And it didn't pay badly, but it involved sitting at a desk all day long, and really I just wasn't very happy. And there were other circumstances surrounding that I won't go into involving the job, but I wasn't happy at all. And then one day we were sent to a seminar called How to Be a Better Communicator. It was at the Disneyland Sheraton, and it was a day-long seminar, and the woman teaching the seminar was a very compelling speaker, one of the best speakers I had ever seen, and I really got the feeling that she knew what she was doing as a speaker and a presenter. She mentioned she was a hypnotherapist, so during one of the breaks I spoke to her, and she said, yeah, I teach at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana. Go check it out. Go drop by and visit them, tell them I sent you. What was funny is I had seen the advertisements for the Hypnosis Motivation Institute in the newspapers, but it was in Tarzana, and for me, that was just too far to drive.
Yeah, that's a long drive.
But the minute she said that, I was like, well, I'm going to go down there. So I did and signed up that night.
What made you do it?
I knew it sounded like something I could do. The program was going to be a year.
Right.
They offered financial aid. They were willing to give me some financial aid. And the classes were at night, so I knew I could keep my day job and go to school at night. And it just seemed like it was the right time and the right place, and the energy of the place was good. And so I just felt it was something that I could do, that I could sit in front of people for an hour, I could learn to listen very well and offer solutions and then hypnotize them and, and build a business from it. The idea of being my own boss was very compelling to me. I didn't want to, or I'd never had much luck working for other people. Plus, I did some hypnotizing of people when I was in high school. Believe it or not.
Really?
You want to hear that story?
Yeah, I want to hear that story, yeah.
I was walking through the halls of my high school one day, and there was a little crowd of people, and I looked over, and somebody was hypnotizing somebody else. So the guy, I remember his name was Danny, the guy that was doing the hypnotizing. I said, what are you doing? He says, oh, yeah, I was hypnotizing this person. I said, how did you learn that? Well, I checked a book out from the library. I said, what was the name of the book? So he gave me the name of the book. Can't remember the name. But I went to the library, checked out the book, read it, started hypnotizing my brothers and sisters, my girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was easy. It's easy to hypnotize people because a lot of people are in hypnosis already. But I hypnotized a friend of mine, the guy that I ended up working for at Cal State LA. I hypnotized him over the phone, and he fell asleep. So, we were like, hello, hello, hello. So I hung up and tried calling back, and his mom answered the phone.
She sound asleep?
She said, he's asleep. I said, can you wake him up? And she had trouble waking him up. I mean, he was deeply asleep. And she got fearful. And she said, what were you guys doing? I said, well, he's hypnotized. And she said, don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again. She said, how do I wake him up? I said, hold the phone up to his ear. I said, eyes open, wide awake. So he woke up, and he was like, oh, that was such a nice nap.
Did you remember anything? No?
I don't think so, which is unusual. And it's unusual for somebody to fall asleep and have difficulty waking them up. But that kind of scared me. And I thought to myself, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I should not do this anymore. So I didn't hypnotize anybody until I was in hypnotherapy school. But it turns out you really can't. You can't cause any damage by hypnotizing somebody unless you're out to cause damage.
Right, right.
It's pretty safe. There's really no side effects.
Well, but people, if they don't want to be hypnotized,
they're not going to go into hypnosis.
I mean, I talked to one lady, and she said, oh, I could never be hypnotized because I'm such a control freak. I thought, well, that's interesting.
Well, some people won't be hypnotized. Some people won't allow themselves to go into hypnosis, and those people don't end up in my office, right? So the people that end up coming to me with their credit card in their hand are ready and willing to use the tool of hypnosis and hypnotherapy to make the changes they want in their life. So there's already some suggestibility there,
right,
to the idea of hypnosis.
So you went twice a week to school?
Yeah, I did.
And did they give you a lot of homework? I mean, because you're working full time and then you're trying to get a career in a really short length of time.
It was a very busy time. Absolutely. We had to watch videos. We had to study for quizzes and tests. And then at some point, 6 months into the curriculum, I had to start seeing clients. Then I had to get business cards and brochures and all the marketing materials. But I was determined to do that, so I did. Luckily, my wife is a graphic designer, so she helped me put a lot of that together. But I started seeing clients pretty quickly into my residency.
How did you find the clients? They came into the hypnosis
No.
school? You had to go out and find clients?
I had to go out and find them
Oh
because
my God.
I didn't want to use the clinic there at HMI because I lived in Sierra Madre, so I didn't want to
Right.
be driving out there. And I worked in Alhambra, Cal State LA. So I sent a letter to everyone I knew. Everyone whose address I knew, I sent a letter telling them what I was doing. Everywhere I went, I started leaving business cards, and I was just talking it up, talking it up. First few people that came to me were relatives, and then they started referring me out. Then I joined a couple of networking groups, and it just took off.
Did you do it in 6 months?
I graduated, yeah. I
Yeah.
got my client hours within 6 months, and after 1 year, graduated with a diploma in hypnotherapy.
How many client hours?
I forget now, 127 pops into my mind.
Okay.
That may not be accurate, but you had to have a certain
a
amount
lot.
of client hours.
That's
Yeah.
a lot. That's
Mhm.
a lot. And then you settled in South Pasadena.
I did. As a matter of fact, at the very beginning of my residency, a couple of students, fellow students, approached me and said, we are looking for an office. Would you like to share it with us? Because neither one of us can afford the rent by ourselves, and maybe at the beginning, we can share. All three of us would be there. So they saw one place, and I went and checked it out, and that didn't work out. And then they showed me another place, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. It had waterfalls and ponds and
It's a nice place.
yeah, it was beautiful. And I remember thinking, the law of attraction. I remember thinking, I'd love to have an office with a garden type scenery and maybe some ponds and kind of, Asian themed. And sure enough, that's what they found. And we all went in, and I've been there now for 15 years.
And people come to you. You do in person and on the phone, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you doing anything through Zoom?
I don't do a whole lot through Zoom, and I always give people the opportunity to do Zoom or just on the telephone or Skype. Seems like most people prefer being on the phone. And I guess the reason for that is, number one, it's simpler.
Yeah.
Number two, there's less of a chance of technical issues of getting disconnected.
Right.
And I think for many people, I think they like that little level of anonymity. There's not somebody looking right at them. And for some people, I think it's more comfortable for them to be in their own space and just to be connected over the phone. So I have done a couple of, what do you call it, Skype sessions, but all of them are over the phone.
Wow.
That works
Or they
well.
come into your office.
Or they come into my office.
Oh, they come into your office. So you have moved along in 15 years. So the coaching and the hypnotherapy. And let's talk. I looked at the things. You do people's fears and anxieties. That's a big part of your business.
That's a big part of my business, although not all of it. But yes, that's a big part.
Which is the biggest fear and the biggest anxiety? Would you say?
I would say driving anxiety and social anxiety are really big.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I work with somebody that has driving anxiety probably a couple of 3 times a week. And it could range from not being able to drive at all to not being able to drive on the freeway to a feeling of kind of anxiety while driving. So driving anxiety is a big one, especially here in Los Angeles, in Southern California. And then social anxiety is a big one too. People having difficulty going into social situations or business networking situations, a feeling of fear, discomfort, self-consciousness. That's a big one as well.
How do you handle like business people? You probably get a lot of business people
Yes.
that have to go in. How do you handle them when they have to go into these situations that are so uncomfortable?
Well, the very first thing we need to do is really get clear about why it's important for them to learn that skill.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I impress upon them that it's a skill. You don't have to be an extroverted person who's loud in the life of the party.
Yeah, right, because that's introverted people feel much more uncomfortable than extroverted people.
Yes, and I'm an introvert.
Yeah, I am too. So I know that, but you get yourself dressed and you just do it.
Well, it's a skill you can learn. The
Yeah.
skill of talking with people and engaging and kind of allowing that anxiety to go by the wayside. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And that was certainly my experience uh, in the beginning days of my business, starting to go to networking events. So that's the first step. Help them develop a compelling reason for why they should develop this skill. And then, there's some basic techniques and, posture and smiling and tone of voice and all of those kind of things. And then what we do in the hypnosis part of the session is we desensitize those fears. And what I mean by that is we put them in a hypnotic state where they're calm and relaxed and comfortable. And then we have them imagine being at these social situations or business networking situations while feeling calm and comfortable. So we create a new association of
Okay.
calm and comfort with the situation that used to trigger anxiety. It's called desensitization or exposure therapy, some people call it.
Okay. And how long does it take to desensitize a person?
It depends
Oh, yeah.
on the person.
Right.
And really, it depends on how willing they are to make this change. It also depends on the severity of their anxiety. Okay, so if somebody is really shut down and they have no experience going to social situations, obviously that's going to be a little more challenging. But if they're on board and some people tell me I'll do whatever it takes, then those people are going to move along a little more quickly than somebody that is kind of like, well, I was going to go, but something came up and I wasn't able to go. And so all that depends on the client and their level of motivation. The other thing I do is I make a recording of the hypnosis part of the session for them to listen to at home, and the more they listen to it, the more
Yeah.
reinforcement of the ideas they'll get.
Yeah. You get through you change your tracks, right?
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Well, that's the only way to put it. You're moving from this track to this track, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
What do you do now? You're doing the hypnosis, and I know there's something I saw here, and I wanted to ask you about it. What's a therapeutic image facilitator? That's what I wanted to ask you.
So they offer a extended coursework in therapeutic imagery. So this is not contained in the core curriculum at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. It's an additional certification you can get. Visualization and imagery is a very, very important part of how we learn. Okay, so as a therapeutic imagery facilitator, we really zero in on using visualization and imagery to help people to move forward in their lives. So, essentially, as I just described, when we're helping people to get over some kind of social anxiety, there's imagery involved as they imagine themselves in a networking situation feeling calm and relaxed and comfortable. But we can take that imagery and we can do a lot with it. So for example, we can have somebody imagine what we might call special place. Imagine you're in a place of great serenity, great beauty, great calm and relaxation. And as you imagine this, you feel all those powerful feelings, helping people to understand that they can create images in their mind which will affect their physical bodies and allow them to be more comfortable and calm. We can take that one step further and have them imagine a special inner guide coming to visit them, giving them words of wisdom. And for many people, they are able to create this image of a inner guide. It might be Yoda, it might be God, it might be Jesus, and they're actually hearing information from this inner guide, giving them direction and guidance. Or talking to people that have passed away, a parent or a friend or a relative or a grandparent, and all of this is very impactful for people. We can use the whole mythic journey, right? So in the example of the hero's journey, what Joseph Campbell, for instance, wrote about, that we're all on some type of hero's journey. We're going to face obstacles, and our job is to find the mentors or the gifts or the grace that allow us to move through those obstacles. And once we move through the challenges and obstacles, now we're bigger, better, stronger, and we can contribute more to our communities, right? So we're the hero in a sense. So all of these type of mythic, archetypal type of images are really, really compelling for people if they're open to them.
That was my next question. Yeah. How open are people to those images? I know you do past life regression too, I wonder how many people are open to that.
Most, I would say,
Really?
are open to
Really?
this kind of imagery. Absolutely. Now, some people have trouble seeing images in their mind. So, I could close my eyes and describe very intimately my living room, but some people aren't able to do that. They don't get visual images, but
They get
you,
audio, right?
audio, or they can pretend, or they can imagine. Yeah, so we just try to use different senses, but most people are able to visualize and see pictures in their mind.
Okay. Okay. So do you now? How many? So you, say you're working with a client and you've gotten through, I don't know, 8 or 10 sessions. How do you recommend, if you feel that they need more, is to go through one of these guided visual imageries? How do you how do you if a client needs more than just plain hypnosis,
Hmm.
do you suggest these other things?
I don't need to suggest them, I incorporate them
Okay.
into the therapy starting from the very first or second session. Okay? And if I feel they need inner guide, then I'll bring inner guide in. And I'll get feedback from them. And if they say, oh, that didn't work for me, then we won't use that again. But if they were like, wow, that was really, I really got something from that, then we'll continue to use these kind of different imagery techniques and modalities.
So this is your basic toolbox, a lot of this.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's just one of the tools in the toolbox.
And you have to find the right tool for that person
That's right.
just to get them. How what's the average? How long do people usually stay? About 20 weeks?
Oh, about, I would say about 10 weeks typically. We can get a lot done in 10 weeks. And that's coming every week, or, first 4 weeks every week, and then after that, every other week. But I do have clients that have been coming for 7, 8 years every month. I have some clients that have been coming for 10 years every month. They come every month. So a lot of people like that maintenance. They like coming in and getting that mental tune up on a regular basis. But as far as weekly, people usually come 8, 10 sessions and then maybe begin to space it out a little bit.
And what about is NLP, changing gears, but I know it's in there. You do NLP, neurolinguistic programming.
Correct.
Is that a tool in your toolbox or is that something separate?
It is a tool in my toolbox, but it's a tool that's used in the so-called cognitive state. So, as opposed to the tools that we use while they're in hypnosis, which would be, for instance, imagery, NLP is a tool that's used when the person is not in hypnosis. So, NLP involves using the way the mind works to create compelling outcomes. So I'll give you an example if I can.
Yeah.
So if somebody was talking about something, let's say a situation that was fearful to them, so we would first ask them, what are you focusing on visually when you're in this fearful situation? What are you hearing? What are you saying to yourself?
All the
What do
mind
you
chatter.
Yeah, all the mind chatter, but we break everything down from their experience and we can map it out, right? So we're going to break down their experience of this fearful thing. So, what do you feel? What do you see? What do you hear? What are you focusing on? What are you thinking? And then we can begin to change those different modalities, okay? Very, very basic example, right?
Good. Give me an example.
Okay, so every time I see this person,
Your stomach bothers you or something.
I'm intimidated. Okay, well, let's imagine that person with a clown nose and clown feet and a voice that sounds like Yoda. Okay, and let's just imagine that, and that starts to break down because now they're feeling differently about that image of that person. If they imagine them with a clown nose and clown feet and circus music, in the background, that's going to actually affect their brain. So in the future, when they encounter that person, they're not going to feel the same level of intimidation. So that's a very basic example. But we can change modalities. We can, if there's a sound that is, scary to them, we can have them imagine that sound being lower in volume. We can imagine them sitting in front of a movie theater and directing their own movie and changing the music or changing the images or making it a color, black and white. All these things are things that we can change which affect the mind.
When would you say somebody had uh, would you would you use it with eating disorders, or would you?
Absolutely. Definitely use it with eating disorders, using it with anxiety, you know. There's an example of a NLP technique called mending a broken heart. So people come in and they're like, my heart is broken, you know, I'm so sad, how can you help me? And we imagine them sitting in a movie theater, watching the whole, we have them actually up in the projection booth.
Oh, see.
Okay, and they're looking down, they're seeing themselves in the movie theater, and on the screen, there's a film of the relationship. So they watch it kind of detached, so they can watch the whole thing from beginning to end. Then they're going to get up out of their seat, they're going to get into the movie, and they're going to play the movie backwards, really, really quickly, in color. The first time they're watching it, it's in black and white. So they're going to get into the movie, they're going to play it backwards in color. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of messing around with the memory of that relationship. And then we'll do some other imagery, like imagine that you are connected to that person with strings. Take some magic scissors and cut those strings. Reattach the strings back to yourself and let them reattach the strings back to themselves. Now release them with a blessing, you know, and send them on their own way for their highest good. So these kind of things are very, very effective. And that takes 5 minutes, and after, people are like, wow, I feel better already. So it's a very, very powerful technique. NLP is also, it's complex. There's a lot to it.
Okay, so if someone's making a decision, should I go to a hypnotherapist who has a NLP and a big toolbox, or do I go to a therapist, or do I go to a psychiatrist? Who do I turn to for some of these things?
Well, each of these different things that you mentioned, they have different, what we call scope of practice. Okay, so a psychiatrist is an MD,
right,
who prescribes medication. So if somebody is depressed to the point that they are severely debilitated in their daily lives, or they have anxiety to the point where they can't leave their house, you know, it might be a good idea to explore seeing a psychiatrist. Now, I'm not going to say I would never counsel my clients to do that, because I'm not qualified to do that, but I might say, you know, it might be a good idea to consider that option, and many people do. So a psychiatrist is a person that pretty much deals with severe mental disorders. Now, a psychotherapist, or let's say a marriage and family therapist, or a LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker, these are dealing with people that, you know, they want to talk. This is talk therapy. So couples counseling, okay? Or they want, you know, there's stuff in their childhood that they just want to talk about, and they want an ear to listen. And of course, psychotherapy is very effective for kind of healing long-term trauma. Okay? And I do get a lot of referrals from psychotherapists. Personally, I think the combination of hypnotherapy and psychotherapy is a really, really good combination. They do support each other very, very well. For me, if somebody wants to get over their anxiety about public speaking, they want to get over their anxiety about driving, or talking in front of people, or business networking, you know, they would come to me. Somebody wants to have the skills, talents, and abilities to move their business to the next level. Okay, so habit control, right? Those kind of things. Quitting smoking, quitting drinking, stopping biting their nails, right? We call it, in the hypnotherapy world, we call it vocational and avocational self-improvement. That's more kind of in my line of work. Now, if I want to work with somebody that has a diagnosis, let's say, of generalized anxiety disorder, then I'll talk to their psychotherapist and say, hey, is it okay for me to work with this person? Can I get your blessing? So we often have to go to the psychotherapist or the MD or the psychiatrist to get a referral. In other words, having them tell us, yes, I believe it's okay for you to work with this person.
And how does, and so you're sharing information, and you have the client's permission to share that?
Absolutely, yes.
Where do you think all of this is going to go? I mean, because there's so many, because there are a lot of coaches now.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have coaches that get certified, right? A certified coach. Where do you think all this is going to go?
I think it's going to go in the direction of people really having access to all of these tools that they can use more and more on themselves. So self-hypnosis, that's not something we've talked about, but that's a very powerful tool that's available to anyone. You can go type in learn self-hypnosis and you can learn to do self-hypnosis, and it's incredibly powerful. But the hidden secret is most people that have some level of success, we're talking celebrities, we're talking athletes, we're talking, Tiger Woods used hypnosis tapes to really up his game when he was down for that decade or so. So I think that where it's heading is more and more people are going to become aware of these very powerful tools and begin to use them because they're going to be more accessible to people, and people are going to lose their bias or their misconceptions about these tools. That's where I think it's going. For example, let's talk about The Secret, right? You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Law of attraction.
Right.
That was introduced to people, and now it's kind of common parlance. I want to focus on what I want, not focus on what I don't want. I want that car, so I'm going to have someone take a picture of me in that car, right? And that's good. I'm going to put that on my vision board to, have that mental programming of what I want. Is that all you need to become successful? No,
No.
but it's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, but sometimes, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Sometimes people are doing it, but nothing's happening. I mean, you can say, you can have the pictures and everything else, but they're
Yes.
nothing's moving.
And that was one of the biggest criticisms of the whole secret phenomenon.
Right.
It's not enough to just sit and imagine. You actually have to take action.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, right.
So when I work with my clients, that's a very, very important part, is motivating them to take action. And that's where the coaching part comes in and the accountability comes in. What do you need to do and by when? When can you do it? Are you willing to make yourself accountable to me? Okay, if I call you on that day, will you have done it? Right? And if they do it, yay, let's acknowledge that. Congratulations. If they haven't, well, let's figure out, why, in spite of the accountability and the agreement, you weren't able to do it. Let's figure out what we need to do to help you move forward and do the thing that you need to do. So that's a very, very important part. I always say that there's only two things the universe understands:
Action.
and intention.
Okay.
Action without intention is like Tony Robbins says, looking for a sunset heading east, right? You're not going to find it. So
Right.
you have to have focused, concentrated action, and you need to be clear about what you intend to have happen. There's lots of people taking action, but I think one of the biggest things that stops people is they simply don't know what they want. You have to know what you want, and you have to be clear as possible and specific about what you want your outcome to be. Then the actions will be congruent with the outcome that you want to achieve in your life. You may have to readjust or change, but you need both of those things pointing in the same direction.
What if you have the action, but you're not really clear on the intention? You're not sure of your market. You're not sure of this. You're fumbling. Is that? And you're not sure with your fumbling.
That could stop you. It doesn't mean you're not going to accomplish something.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people that are accomplishing big things, but understand that they could be doing more, or they could be targeting their business, or they could be more efficient in their business. A good example would be somebody who has a successful business, but no time for anything else. No time for family, no time for fun, no time for friends. And so, they're successful, but they're like, well, I'm making money, but I have no time to spend it, no time to enjoy it. Okay, well, what's the next step? Can we delegate? Do we need to hire a team? Do we need to outsource some of the work? Okay, so, there's always tweaking, there's always adjusting, even when you're quote unquote successful.
All right, when you're getting back to this, do you find sometimes people really don't know what they want to do? You kind of fumble for a long time. Do you work with people who kind of fumble too?
Absolutely.
I mean, looking at their talents, looking at
Yes.
their talents. There's a difference between talents and liking it too.
Right.
You may have the talent, but you don't like it.
Exactly.
And trying to get a real picture of where to go.
Yeah, and that's very challenging, for the person that's coming in. But one of the first things I revealed to them is like, I fumbled for many years. For
That's
many
good for you
years.
because then you that makes you good because
I think so.
you understand where they're coming from.
Yes, and I understand the frustration, I understand the desperation, I understand how it affects your self-esteem to not having found your path or your footing. So one of the most important things when dealing with those people is explore. Don't be afraid to explore. It's easy to say, oh, that won't work, but how do you know until you've tried? Explore, talk to people that are doing what you're doing. Do some research. Can you go visit this job or business that you think you might like? How does it feel to you? I think a lot of people are paralyzed by their own indecision. But if I can get them up and out and doing something, a lot of times things start to fall in place.
Right, right. Once you take that action, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's not even the right action.
Doesn't have to be.
You just
You
it
self
happens
you
a lot.
self-correct, right?
You go here and something they'll tell you something out of nowhere. You think, oh, I'll take what they said. You go there.
Absolutely. Like the example I told you of the hypnotherapist at the seminar that I attended saying, check out HMI. But that's all it took. I had heard of HMI. I wanted to go into some kind of personal self-development field, but all it took was her, as the catalyst, as the little push, and then boom, the rest is history. So, everybody has access to that push or that moment, and it may not be as clear cut as that, but
No, it's not like God comes down and says, here, here's your agenda.
Right.
It's not, I mean,
unfortunately it's not. But this is where faith and trust comes in. Like somehow, some way, I'll figure it out. Just keeping that positive intention alive and continuing to look and search and take action. And if you're 43 years old like I was and nothing's happened, it's very difficult to maintain that faith and hope. And like I said, I'd almost reached the end of my rope,
Well, and then
and something happened.
you went to that seminar and that out of nowhere, you weren't even expecting it.
I
Right?
wasn't even expecting it, but I also have to mention that I'd done a lot of work on my own. I'd taken all kinds of personal self-development seminars like Landmark Forum, I read books, I did a lot of stuff in an attempt to pull me out of my own low self-esteem and my own scarcity thinking. So all of those things added up. You have to do something. You have to reach out and take action. I always say the hows, I don't say it, I got it from somebody else.
Yeah.
The hows are the domain of the universe, right? You don't have to figure out how. Just be clear about what it is that you want. And keep focusing on that and taking action. And somebody will say something, or you'll read something, or somebody will refer
Out of
you.
nowhere.
Boom,
Boom.
and something will happen if you're ready.
Yeah, if you're not ready, it's not going to happen.
That's right. Oh, they could hit you over the club with an opportunity.
You'll go around again. You
Right.
go around. So where do you want to go in your business? The one thing I did, I know you do Zen meditation and you've done Qigong. Do you feel that helps you with getting clear in yoga?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually off of my meditation practice right now, and I'm trying to get back into it. But here's something very interesting. The years that I did meditate have a profound and lasting effect. So it wasn't like I lost it. It may be more difficult for me to sit down and meditate today after not having meditated for a few months, but the impact from doing meditation and yoga remains with me today. So I'm so gratified that I actually had the opportunity to take that on and to understand how important it is to be present. Okay?
Yeah.
So as far as business goals, what I'd like to do is continue to get better as far as serving my clients, continue to educate myself and sharpen my saw, so to speak. My next goal would be to create more customized MP3 recordings for people to take advantage of. I want to do more workshops, and I'm already in conversation with some people about doing some workshops. And I'd really like to kind of get more...
What kind of workshops?
What I'd really like to do is kind of create more mindfulness workshops where we practice being present and the huge opportunity that allows us to be present to what's happening here now. I'd like to understand more about the power that comes from being present.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's unimaginable for somebody that's not present.
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
but it's somehow it seems like a gap opens up, and you can be there in that space.
Yes.
And I found it really it's helped me to calm down a lot.
Hmm.
Meditation for me.
Absolutely. That is so true because meditation just allows you to sit and watch the constant stream of chatter and not get attached to it, right? So when you're in a situation, you can notice that chatter and not have it impact you with the realization that right here, right now, everything's okay. There's no problems right now, right here. And if there is a problem, what can I do about it? How can I attend to it in a way that's powerful?
Yeah, it gives you choices. When you're in that chatter, it's just it's so loud.
Because you're being ruled by your programming at that
Right,
point.
your program
By the
you
tapes,
do
yeah.
this, da 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 da, and it goes on and on. It's like interrupt. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so you're going to do workshops. What else?
My own personal development is really, really important to me. So I want to get back to meditating on a regular basis. I want to learn more about the energy of the body. In fact, one of the things that I'm becoming more interested in is the whole mind-body
Oh,
connection,
that's important.
because I'm getting more and more clients that are coming in with uh, illnesses or pain that doctors can't find a reason for. So stomach pain, back pain, and they've had all the tests they have, and the doctor's like, there's nothing wrong with you. Why is that happening? So the most reasonable place to turn is that there's some emotional basis for this pain in your body. And there's been some great research and great books. The Divided Mind by John Sarno is a great book about this, okay? So helping people to get in touch with whatever it is that's keeping that physical discomfort or that disease or illness in place. I'm not going to sit here and suggest in any way, shape, or form that everything has some kind of psychological component, but I'm not going to say that that's not the case either.
Right, right.
Okay, I mean, we have to maintain that as a possibility. And if medical intervention is required, then yes, let's do whatever we need to do. Let's take the test. Let's, prescribe whatever needs to be prescribed. But if that doesn't work, we have to look elsewhere. And the best place to look is up here. What is going on up here that is causing my body to feel this particular way that doesn't serve me or that doesn't feel good? So that is very, very fascinating to me. And there's some really, really wonderful research done on that, and so many books coming out in that area right now. And I have yet to read many of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think too is the food that we eat. I mean that's
Yes.
very, very connected to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you. That's not my area of expertise, so I usually refer my clients out to nutritionists that I know and have interviewed on my podcast, and for them to help my clients with that area. Eating life-giving, healthy food.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. So that's major. I
Yes.
mean, because we are one. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like we're the arm and the heart. They even find now that the heart has emotions.
Yes.
Heart Math is doing a lot of research on that.
Mm. I had a person in my office. In fact, she was on my podcast. Her name is Nina Impala, and she's a grief counselor. And a little shout out to Nina. So she told me that when you have grief, the heart muscle actually constricts. Now, when I first, obviously we use the heart as a metaphor, a broken heart. The heart doesn't really break. But according to what she told me, and I don't know any research about this, but when you feel grief or when you feel tension, the heart muscle is actually more constricted, like every other muscle in the body. And what impact does that have on your physicality, on your health, if your heart muscle is not able to beat the way it's supposed to? So this is a prime example of emotions affecting the body. And we have so many common everyday examples. Oh, that makes my stomach hurt. Oh, that makes my head hurt, right? Swallowing the bitter pill, intestinal fortitude. Do you have the backbone or the spine? We have this is called organic language that
Right.
points to different areas of the body.
Yeah, I mean, something happens, you say, "Oh God, I feel that in my gut."
Yes.
I don't know why I feel in my gut, but or someone walks into the room, and you do not like that person.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named DeBecker, and he works with women. He wrote a book and he talks about women being, sometimes they're susceptible to making nice when they should not make nice.
Mm.
And so if there are rape cases or things like that, he
Right.
says, if your stomach says don't go on the elevator with this man,
Right.
and it's loud and clear,
Mm-hmm.
don't go on the elevator, don't make nice. Listen to that instinct.
Yeah, that's so important and so powerful. But unless you have some connection with your body, you're not going to feel that, much less pay attention to it. So, and this is another area that seems to me to be pretty important to bring to my clients, is the fact that as modern day 21st century Americans, we're very disconnected from our physical bodies. Unless you're an athlete of some sort or doing some practice such as yoga, we spend most of our time up in our head thinking, planning, wondering, remembering. We spend most of our time in front of a computer keyboard. So to bring the attention into the body is a very, very important thing, because the body has information for us, I believe.
Lots of information they're finding out too.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of information. So there's a lot for you to do. But I mean, I look at this, and you have a doctor, and then you have a therapist or whatever, and pulling it together to see a person as one being, not chopped up.
Yes, and to their credit and to the credit of the medical field, my own personal physicians seem to be very interested in what I eat or what's going on in my life. I've never had a doctor ask me before, is everything going on in your life? Or your relationship okay? You eating good food, getting some exercise? You smoking cigarettes or anything else? What you drinking lots of water? So even medical doctors are really beginning to bring that into the patient examination room, asking those kind of questions.
Yeah.
And it's long overdue, in my opinion.
I think so. I think in the medical field and they're working with Ayurvedic doctors from India,
Right.
so they're trying to get all of this. I had a woman on
Mm-hmm.
who's a health coach, and we were talking about that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we were talking about that. So we're going to end.
Okay. So anybody that wants to get in touch with me can go to www.tedmoreno.com. I also have a podcast called Ted in Your Head. It's very short, 10 minutes, and that is at tedinyourhead.com. And feel free to reach out to me via the usual social media outlets. Ted A. Moreno, certified hypnotherapist.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
This is fun. This is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do?